Okay, so we have this cool formula called the quadratic formula. Okay, now this tells us that for any equation, so if we have ax squared plus bx plus c equals, what must it equal? 0. Then x equals negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay? Now, for those of you who are curious, it is derived by completing the square, which is why completing the square is my favorite method to use. Now, we're going to go ahead and use this equation. I want to point out a couple things first. The first thing, this plus or minus, that means you can break this down. If you are too confused by that, if you're like, this plus or minus, I don't feel comfortable using that plus or minus, you can make two equations. You know that x equals negative b plus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a, or x equals negative b minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. These are the same. This one I write it as one equation, this I write it as two. That's fine. Okay? I'll do a problem with both of them. Okay? Now, the one key that I have to drill every year is that the sign in front of a coefficient will stay with your coefficient. So we're going to have to use parentheses. All right, so this, I will say this, the equation, you'll always be given that equation. Now, hopefully with time, as you see it more often, you'll have it memorized, but you will always be given that equation in class and on the EOC. All right, so let's start with a simple one. So we'll say that y equals x squared plus 2x minus 5. Okay, so we have to identify a, b, and c. Okay, ax squared plus bx plus c. So first off, we know that y has to equal 0. Then we have a equals, that one's a bit tricky, 1. B equals 2. C equals negative 5. Now, I've got a formula, and I'm not afraid to use it. Let's go ahead and plug in with what we've got. We're going to do this one broken down for the first one, and then we'll just combine on our next example. Okay, so here's my first possibility. Okay, so we have x equals negative b plus square root b squared minus 4 times a times c. Notice how everything is in parentheses. All over 2a. And then we have the other one. Negative 2 minus square root of 2 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 5 all over 2 times 1. Now, when we simplify, we must simplify 3 places. In the denominator, the left of the addition sign, and inside the radical. If you want to go further, that's all well and good, but we must simplify this place, and this place. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so x equals negative times 2. That's just going to be negative 2 there. Plus, and I'm going to take a few steps to get this inside done. So we have 4 minus, now 4 times 1 is 4. 4 times negative 5 is negative 20. Negative times negative, we'll keep it like so, negative 20 over 2. Okay, now I'm going to keep going. X equals negative 2 plus square root of 4 plus 20 over 2. X equals negative 2 plus square root of 24 over 2. That's one solution. Now we have our second solution. So x equals -2 minus 4 minus -20. Keep that in parentheses. Over 2. X equals -2 minus 4 plus 20 over 2. X equals -2 minus square root of 24 over 2. Now what do we notice about these two answers? Everything's the same except that this is plus and this is minus. So we could have just used this formula up here. Okay, but if you feel more comfortable splitting it up, by all means do that. Okay, I want you to do what you feel comfortable with. Okay, if this works better now, and over time you get more comfortable and you're like, oh, this makes more sense to me, now I'm going to start using it. Go ahead and do that. If it takes time, that's fine. All right, now we're going to step it up a notch, but we're still going to use that formula. Okay, so we're really not changing things up a whole lot. We're going to use that every single time we want to solve with the quadratic formula. So let's go ahead with this problem here. Okay, y equals -3x squared minus 2x plus 1. All right, so we should first do what? Y equals 0 for us to solve it. Minus 3x squared minus 2x plus 1. I'm going to keep drilling this as well. Okay, because we always need to know that. When we solve a quadratic, y equals 0. So a is the number in front of the x squared, -3. B is the number in front of x, -2. Keep those negative signs. Keep those negative signs. And then c is the number at the end, 1. Okay, so look, we've got a formula with A, B, and C, and we have A, B, and C. Let's go ahead and plug them in. Okay, we've got a formula, and we're not afraid to use it. So, I'm going to change colors. I'm going to do just one equation this time. So we have x equals -b. Now notice how I'm using those parentheses. This is why we have to use parentheses. If I had $1 for every time this was messed up, I could retire yesterday. Okay? Now, we have negative times -2 plus or minus square root b squared. So we put that in parentheses, squared, minus 4 times -3 in parentheses, times 1 in parentheses. Even though it's 1 and we just multiply by 1, I want to see it there. Okay? Because if it were not 1, I don't want us to make mistakes. And then we have 2 all over 2a, 2 times -3. So once again, we have to simplify in 3 places. Here, here, and here. Okay? So, x equals negative times -2. That's a positive 2. Plus or minus, here we have square root of 4. -4 times -3 times 1 makes plus 12 over -6. So we have x equals 2 plus or minus square root 16 over -6. Oh, we know square root of -16. Let's go ahead and just simplify that. Okay, so we have x equals 2 plus or minus 4 over -6. So now I'm going to break it down again. Okay, so we're going to have x equals 2 plus 4 over -6. X equals 2 minus 4 over -6. So this is going to equal 6 over -6, which equals -1. It's going to equal -2 over -6, which equals 1/3. Now, you have a few questions to answer regarding the quadratic formula. You're going to solve a couple problems using that method. And as you're doing that, I'll be checking your answers and seeing if we need to talk about this some more.